Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, this time featuring the fastest update I'll likely ever do for a deck. There was a point update immediately after I made the original video for this deck, and I really didn't expect anything to get hit since it's my own brew using engines that don't see much play. And yet they hit us pretty damn hard for some reason, which necessitated an immediate update, so let's get into it. So the first big thing is that we're not playing Terratop anymore. We were playing it at 3 points because it's a special summon starter that just didn't take our normal summon, but honestly it was probably the worst starter in the deck, and at 7 points it's just not worth it for anyone. No one's going to be playing it at 7, so like, I don't know. Beatroid players are in shambles right now. Instead, we are playing 3 Rescue Hedgehogs, not because its points got adjusted or anything, but because I realized after the previous video how good this card is for our deck. If you are unfamiliar, as I was, this is a rescue card that you can normal summon and then banish from field to special summon 2 level 3 or lower monsters from your deck with the same type, attribute, and level, but one has to be a normal monster and one has to be an effect monster. Their effects are negated, but you can still do the same thing you do with Tour Guide, where if they have anything when sent to grave or any activated effects in grave, you can still use those, just nothing on field. So that ends up being, like, absolutely amazing. You can think of it as 3 more copies of Tour Guide, but it's actually better because instead of making Tour Guide and our vanilla, it instead makes our vanilla and our new Buyo the Dawn's Light, which is a new package that we're running. So I was already looking for something to gain value out of our discards, because like the Materia Actor engine discards a lot of cards. Taidu has to do a mandatory discard as part of her effect. We use a lot of cards in hand just as fodder, and so I wanted just a small engine that we could use to turn that into advantage. Turns out Buyo the Dawn's Light does that exact thing while also making Rescue Hedgehog amazing. Because Buyo can target one of our Fiend effect monsters, say a Spent Tour Guide, and then we can summon it from hand and then use it as material, but either way, however it's summoned, when it's sent to grave, by any means, say detached from one of our 3s, we can search Mutiny in the Sky. Mutiny in the Sky is a fusion that allows us to fuse a Fiend or Fairy using materials in the grave and shuffling them into the deck. So we are specifically shuffling in the Buyo, and then like a Spent Tour Guide, or once we're done with Dark King of the Abyss, we can use that. We could use Gone Wild, but that doesn't come up that often. And we're making Duke of Demise. Duke of Demise is a level 6 Fiend that gives us an extra normal summon. So we're very normal summon heavy already, so having an extra one is stellar. And then because it's a level 6, we can use it to make Goblin's Crazy Beast. Lars was one of the concessions we had to make for this deck. We just can't afford to play it with the current build, and I'll go into where our points went a little bit later. So we're playing Goblin's Crazy Beast now instead. Crazy Beast is still a stellar card. It is a rank 6 though, because it can eat an opponent's spell trap once per turn, and it can protect our monsters from being destroyed just by detaching its own material, similar to Ryzeal Detonator. And then it can also come back from grave by attaching one of our goblins to itself every turn. So just very, very good card. It's a recursive threat, it's protection, it's disruption. It's not a negate, but that's okay. It's still very, very good. Speaking of goblins, the goblins have been trimmed. So Grand Breakout at 7 is insane. I would have still played the 3 if it had only gone to like 3 points or something, but 7 is a lot to ask. So we're only playing the 1, which means we've just trimmed down the whole goblin package in general, and now we're just using it as part of our combo and like conditional extenders and things like that, rather than like a whole big extension package. So, you know, we need these to make enough Xyz bodies to make our fancy guys like Utopic Future Zexal. So they are needed in the deck, and they are good, but they're just kind of like bricky, so we're playing the minimum amount possible now that Grand Breakout is too expensive to justify playing the full playset. Oh, and the last thing I want to mention about Rescue Hedgehog is kinda neat that we actually have more starters now than we did in the previous version. We have 22 total starters rather than having 19. So it's not like they took away our consistency, they just made more of them normal summons. Speaking of which, we're playing the full playset of Exoraptor now, which is a normal summon reliant starter, but also it can just be like an extender. So Exoraptor, you reveal it, discard another card, add your level 3 normal, so our Dark King of the Abyss, to hand, and then you can special summon this card. So that on its own gets us started, because then we can normal summon the Dark King of the Abyss, and that's a rank 3, or we can just hold the Abyss and discard it to Gigadra later, and like we've just got an extra 3 on the field, so we can use it as extension or starting, which is cool, because otherwise we're very normal summon reliant. Speaking of not being normal summon reliant, I have modified the Radiant Typhoon engine just slightly. We're playing one Megala. So Megala, we don't actually use the effect to special summon from deck because that would windlock us, but it can just special summon itself out from hand if the opponent doesn't have any back row or we have used an MST, and then we can just use it as a rank 3 body. But most importantly, if we open one of the Radiant Typhoon monsters, instead of always translating to 2 bodies and an MST, which is good, don't get me wrong, it can now translate into 3 bodies. So if you start with Eldum, you summon the Eldum, search Swen, Swen searches Chant, Chant searches either Megala or the MST, whichever one you need. So then the Megala can special summon, and by representing 3 bodies, it becomes as good of a starter as Tour Guide, basically. And these guys don't take our normal summon. So, I mean, most of the time they don't take our normal summon. So, just like the engine, the Radiant Typhoon engine we were playing in this deck with 1 addition got even better. And so then the last big thing is that, unfortunately, Nibiru costs 5 points now. That means that every combo deck like ours has to have a way to get around Nibiru. There are only 2 good ways for a deck like this to do that, because they have effectively banned Gossip Shadow by putting it at 70 points. The first way, and one that I have explored, is to include the Punk engine, because you can get to Jam Fever on like your 6th summon, and then as long as you have anything else that acts as a starter, you force out the Nibiru before you actually get started on your combos, and then you're good and insulated, and there you go. I've built that build, and I like that build, but I wanted to keep this as close to the original version as possible. So instead we're going with option number 2, which is Utopic Draco Future. Unfortunately, we have to do this, but we need to play the Utopic Draco Future, and that makes it so that if we open 2 starters, say anything from the Radiant Typhoon engine and then like one of our normal summons, we can use the Radiant Typhoons to go into Alucard. Alucard goes into Ghost Trick Angel of Mischief. Mischief detaches Alucard to search Ghost Trick Shot. Ghost Trick Shot brings back Alucard that we can then turn into a 4 with our Utopic Ray Lancer. Most of the time for this, people will just play the second Ghost Trick Angel of Mischief to go into, but we don't want to spend the extra deck space on that, and we have Lancer anyways that does the job, so like that's just what we're doing for that. And then we can overlay the 2 into Utopic Future, and then Utopic Future into Utopic Draco Future, which insulates our actual starter from Nibiru and any other hand traps that may pop up for the rest of the turn without using our normal summon. And then because we have another starter in hand, we're just good to go, and none of like that whole engine doesn't disrupt our normal plays in any real way, so we don't have to worry about it. So, you know, that's how we get around Nib. We have to be able to do it because basically everyone's going to be playing it at 5 because it was supposed to be at 10, and it should have remained at 10 because that is where it was healthy, but they reduced it for no good reason. And unfortunately that means that we can't make 2 Utopic Future Zexals. Like, you simply cannot make Utopic Draco Future and 2 Zexals in the same game. It's not really possible. So we're just making the 1, but that's okay. It's still a very, very powerful card, and backed up with Utopic Draco Future, which is also a very, very powerful card. Our end board is still incredibly difficult out. Last thing I want to mention is non-engine has changed up a little bit. We're playing Evenlies instead of Zeus because we needed extra space in the extra deck. As so, like, we just turned Zeus's 20 points into 2 Evenlies to kind of sort of do the same thing. We still have Ultimate Slayers, we still break boards quite well. We're still only hoping to see like 1 or 2 of these. We have the same total amount because I think 14 is correct in this deck. We just Evenly's an option now instead of Zeus. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for the updates. Everything else is still the same. We can still make, like, Apophis if we open that's 10, which is a way to get into Crazy Beast. We can still go into Gone Wild during our primary combo. If we know that we're going to have another way to make one of our 6s, we just make our 6s more consistently now, thanks to the Buio package, which is pretty cool. And so I'm honestly not sure whether the deck is better or worse now. So yes, we lost Lars, which is an Omni Negate, and that's a big hit. We lost Zeus, which is a hit going second. But the Rescue Hedgehog edition is actually really good. Buio is extension, so that kind of makes up for the loss of Grand Breakout. Exoraptor can act as extension. So, like, we have gotten a couple of updates just from me continuing to tinker with the deck. You can see this is version 8. The original video was version 3, and I've got just like a bunch of them using different engines and things like that. For me continuing to tinker, the deck has gotten better at the same time that they have made it worse through point cost, so I'm not sure if this version is better or worse, but all I know is that it still plays very well, and it works, and it has been fun in testing, so that's good enough for me. So anyways, let's go see a combo. I'm just going to show the Hedgehog Combo because that is a new one, and then we'll play a couple of games. Alright, so this is the only combo I want to show you because it is a rather different one from the older ones, whereas those are all pretty similar, just with different endboard pieces. So let's get started. So we're going to normal summon Rescue Hedgehog and use its effect to banish it to summon Buio and our Vanilla. That lets us go into Gabonga and add Doug. Doug can detach either material here, but I like to detach Buio because it lets us add both in the same chain, just in case they droll at a weird time for some reason. Then we contribute Gabonga to summon out our level 6, and that summons out Clattersploder, which brings back Gabonga, and then we can use 2 to go into Exiguard, summon Zeptwing, which lets us get critical and bring back the Vanilla we summoned earlier. We can use 2/3s to go into Invoker. Invoker summons Adra. Adra places both, and then we can go into UFZ with our 2 spent 3s. Then we can use the Mutiny in the Sky. Mutiny in the Sky gets us another level 6. We don't have anything to normal summon here, so we just go straight into Crazy Beast with the Goblin from earlier. And then we can do the Argo Stars part of the combo, summoning Taidu to add Etio, going into Arion. Arion grabs us the Field Spell. Field Spell allows us to get back the Etio after we discard it to turn the Arion into Utopic Grey Lancer. Then we set a couple and we pass. So we've got one negate, one Omni negate at least, which is worse than before because this should be Lars. I don't know, whatever, it's fine. But Goblin's Crazy Beast is still quite good because it protects the rest of our monsters that aren't warriors, which is everything besides UFZ, from destruction by detaching, and then it can eat back row. So if the opponent is playing, for example, now the de facto best deck, Radiant Typhoon Runic, we can eat the field spell, and then we have the field spell off the board, and that does a lot to beat that deck. So it's still good. It's still good. And then Ray Lancer's still doing his thing, makes us automatically win battle. We've still got the 2 bounces, follow-ups, 2 slow negates, all that good stuff. So really the only difference here is Crazy Beast instead of Lars, but this is a really good starter. Like, the Hedgehog is our best starter now for sure. Cool, cool. Alright, so for our game, I'm actually going to show you guys a full match. I'm going to start playing ranked matches a lot more on Omega now that Genesys is fully supported, in the hopes that people are less likely to just jump ship the second the tables turn. And this one is actually a pretty good one. We're up against Psychics, just like the teleport pile. They're playing some Kashtira stuff, just, you know, Psychics, and we're going first. This is one of the worst hands the deck can produce. We have to just special summon Megala and then normal summon Buio, but thankfully the opponent doesn't have anything, it seems. Actually, scratch that. I can tell they have something, because they keep getting like the chance to respond to what we're doing. So I fully expect to get blown out at any given moment, but they just aren't pulling the trigger, and I don't know what it could be that they're not pulling the trigger on, if it's like a DD Crow or something like that. I don't know, but they let us basically go all in. Unfortunately, on this combo, we're not allowed to get Materiactor Critical off of Exiguard. It just doesn't work out, but otherwise pretty good. Here, they finally fire the Ghost Ogre. So, they fire the Ghost Ogre on Taidu because we discarded, and I don't know why they held it so long, but it's actually a pretty good target. Thankfully, by activating an effect when we already have Etio on field, that lets us activate the Etio in response to summon herself and bounce the Taidu. That gives us a target for the Arion still, and we didn't even need the search off of Taidu because we have Home Stadium in hand anyways. We would have liked to get the second Etio, but we didn't need to, so we can just use Etio, go into Arion. And then we can discard the Taidu we bounced back to go into Utopic Ray Lancer, which gives us 2 bodies to go into UDF. Note that I could have and probably should have gone into UDF first with our 2 Exes and not the Zexal. I kind of realized that mistake in the moment. I just was so eager to get Zexal on board. I love my boy. We add back the Etio and we pass on quite a formidable board. We've got Beast to suck and protect our cards. We've got UDF to negate and take control. We've got Zexal to protect the rest of our stuff and to steal a card. We've got giant bodies so they can't get over us in combat. We've got Etio to bounce. This is a pretty damn solid board. Unfortunately, we don't have a spell negate, so they just immediately Dark Ruler us, and then they draw into MST. So we summon the Etio, bounce the Etio, but unfortunately I was assuming that was going to make their Radiant Typhoon engine online. Thankfully, they don't have any Radiant Typhoon engine. They're kind of in a bricked up situation like we were. They summon out Minister and Blaster, that's 2 bodies. But we're not completely out of the game yet. We use Clattersploder detaching Gabonga to summon itself and then summon back the Gabonga with the intent that when they do something, we can use UDF. Even though we can't use the effect, we can still pay cost, which allows us to discard to detach a material from it, which then triggers Gabonga to suck up their Magician. Cool, so we still have some disruptions. We've got layered stuff going on. We can do this. Unfortunately, they choose to summon back Ghost Ogre, which means that they can respond by sending Ghost Ogre from the field to pop the Gabonga, so that nothing can be attached to it because it's no longer on the field, which means they get to keep a level 8 Synchro's worth of materials, and they go into Crossmind Archfiend, which lets them bring back a 2000 beater. They banish UDF until end of turn, and we still have one final trick. We have Grand Breakout in the graveyard. That means when they go to swing with Archfiend, we can detach both materials from Crazy Beast, one of which is Gone Wild. So all of their stuff loses a bunch of attack, but Gone Wild, more importantly, triggers to overlay the Crossmind Archfiend that they basically was the only thing they have left, and they're forced to pass the turn. We get back UDF, albeit with 0 materials, and all of our stuff is no longer negated, and they can see the writing on the walls. They have no resources left, and we've got 3 big bodies standing strong with recursion and follow-up. Cool. Very good, long, back-and-forth game. Had a great time with this one. Let's get to game 2, which isn't quite as good, but it's still okay. Alright, and then game 2, we are going second with a much better hand. Still not amazing for going second specifically, but we'll see what we can do. They open Unicorn, which is pretty terrifying, but apparently they don't have like a real starter, because they just open the Fenrir and some extension. Unfortunate on them, but they still end with Fenrir, Unicorn, and Birth setup, so, you know, that's probably playthroughable, especially since we rip MST off the top so we can pop the Birth. We activate That's 10 before starting in on our special summons, trying to get them to use their disruptions, and thankfully they do, and in fact they hit That's 10 when it's probably not that relevant this game. Cool, that means we can just do full combo from here because they've used everything as long as they don't have a hand trap. They're gonna just see the writing on the walls at this point because we're gonna set up recursion. We probably just kill them, so they they call it at that point, but I mean, they hit Gabonga with Unicorn, which is a bit of a nuisance. We don't manage to get critical again this game. Oh no, that's not true. We would have gotten to critical since we had Zepthwing in hand that we still haven't used, which is another 2/3s. Like, we were fine. Through 2 disruptions, that's just not enough. That just ain't gonna do it. We discarded Doug just because, like, what are we gonna do with Doug if we don't have Big Gabonga? I don't know. Deck plays through a couple of disruptions quite well. It's softer to the lingering floodgates, but the Argostar's engine still works through most of those as long as we can put 2/3s on the field, and as you can see, even on some of our worst hands, we still put 2/3s on the field, so it's not that hard to do. But anyways, guys, no big closing thoughts spiel, just like the deck still works, the deck is still perfectly fine, I'm still working on it, but I think this is a place where I'm quite happy with it, even if we did lose some stuff for no good reason, because it is not exactly a meta brew. That's okay. Cool. Cool. Bye-bye.